welcome to the Shabbat of this morning. We glorify the name of the Lord, our King, for the great love that He has towards us, that each call us our sons and daughters, and bringing us before Him this morning, in this new month, the month of Elul. We thank Him for His divine protection and guidance, for the provision, for the bread, for the water, spiritually and physically, for everything, for the clothes, for the shelter that He has provided for us. We thank Him and we bless His mighty name. The Parshas of this morning and the Parshas that we're going to discuss about is called Parashah Re. Re meaning to see, look, understand, take notice, watch, comprehend what God is talking about. And this is all what we can derive different kinds of meaning from this. But it said to see. And what is Moshe Rabbeinu? What is he telling us to see? Because there is an issue that Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to discuss with the people. He's trying to tell them, because there are a lot of people that we know that when you ask them to see, because they don't want to see, no matter what you tell them, they will never listen, because they are not interested to see. And Moshe is saying, look, see, understand, comprehend, take note what I am discussing with you this morning, what I'm discussing with you this day, what I am passing over to you. Remember that very soon Moshe Rabbeinu God will call him to the heaven, right? Very soon he's going, and this is his last kind of message to the people, and he's telling them, because these children are his children, literally, as I'm saying, because these children, they grow up before him. Remember all the generation that left Mizraim, 99% of them have been wiped out, and these are the children, the descendants of these people. And Moshe is telling them, is reminding them, is giving them, is reading the Torah back to them, telling them these are what you are going to do when you enter into the land. And Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us the same thing this morning, telling us that this is what we have to do in order for us to be able to inherit the Garden of Eden. I subtitle the parasha of this morning as choose where you want to stand, or choose where you stand. It's a choice. The Torah is giving us a kind of a state warning that it is a choice, right? Things of the Torah is a choice, and he said, choose where you stand. He said, I presented before you this morning a blessing, and the consequence if you did not obey, people refer to call it a curse, which I don't technically will call it a curse. Technically, I will say it is the consequence of our actions, right? It is what we refuse to follow. When we refuse to follow the Torah, when we refuse to follow or to obey the commandment and the statutes and and all the laws of God, then we reap what we sow. So you cannot sow orange and you want to reap a mango. It is not possible. So you are going to reap what you sow. And that is what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us, that the Torah, the essence of Torah is life and death. You choose one. The Torah is balanced. Everything in nature is balanced. In the Garden of Eden, we have the tree of life and we have the tree of wisdom, or the tree that creates death, the spirit of knowledge. You choose one. You want to choose the tree of life, you go there. The other side give you the opposite. You choose it. The one that you want, you choose. Torah is about choice. This parasha set the tone for the whole book of Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim. It opens with a reference to the covenant ceremony that is to take place as soon as the Israelites enter the promised land, and closes with the assurance of the divine blessing if they obey, or if they are obedient to God. Remember, it is what is conditional. If they are obedient to God. If they refuse to obey the commandment of God, even though God has promised them the land, even though God has given them the land to possess, the Torah is telling us that the land will spill them out. Because if they refuse to do justice and to do kindness and to do good on the land. Remember, the land is God. In between it highlights what the covenant requires. That is, the total rejection of pagan practices and custom, the establishment of a just and compassionate society, and the proper worship of God. This is what is meant for Israel to live up to the divine call to be a holy people and God's special treasure. So this is what it means to be called by God a separated society. It's just a society that is meant to be a light to the entire human race. And that is what God is saying, that they have to destroy, they have to reject, they have to completely annihilate all the pagan practices and custom on the land. And they have to establish a just and a compassionate society. A just and a compassionate society. Not a wicked society. Not a society of scam. Not a society that is full of fraud men and fraud women. Not a society that is full of abuse. Not a society that is full of sin. Not a society that says it is my human right, I can do whatsoever I want to do. Not such a society. Sin. Moshe Rabbeinu present the great choice, the blessing or the curse, which I said I don't call it curses, but the consequence of our action. This is followed with prohibition about eating blood and obeying false prophets. You know, as I said, prophet for profit. Those prophets that only tells you what you want to hear. Those prophets that even though in your grief, your sin, they hide their face as far as you continue to donate to the synagogue or to any place of your worship. They hail you, hey, right? You are the man. You are the special person with a special seat, with a big high seat. As far as you continue to donate the millions and the thousands of dollars, the rabbi doesn't care where the money is coming from. Then a restatement of the laws of Shemitah and Yovel. That means the sabbatical year and the year of Jubilee and the pilgrimage festivals. The three Moedim that they commanded us that we have by any means we must go into Jerusalem to appear before the Lord our God on these on those festivals. It is well known that one of the reasons for the book found in the temple during the age of Josiah the king is identified with Deuteronomy. It is the requirement in the Parshas for the centralization of the sacrificial code. You need to understand that God is giving the Israelites this commandment. Everything has to be centralized. Everything is like a pyramid, centralized society. One God, one temple, one people, one Kohen Gadol. Understand? It is centralized. One God for everybody. One temple for everybody. One people and one Kohen Gadol. So because we need to understand that we are all descendants of Jacob. Right? We are all blood descendants of Jacob Avinu. So therefore we are one before God. You can say, okay, I'm from Judah, I'm from Ephraim, I am from Manasseh, I am from this and that. It doesn't matter before God. For God, you are all one. Descendant of Jacob. That is it. You are descendant of Isaac and descendant of Abraham, my friend. So all of us as a society, we are one before him. The same thing here, even though all the human race are one before God, because we are all descendants of Adam and Sean. So this is what God is telling us individually, that remember, the DNA that runs in you is the DNA of Adam, which myself, which is God, has given him or created for him. So technically, before God, we are one person, and God is telling us that we have to understand that. Because once you know that you are my brother and your brother, I will not seek your word, I will not seek negativity against you. I will seek positivity for you. Because I realize and understand that we are one as a person. No fewer than 16 times is the Israelite enjoined to journey to the place God has chosen to bring offering and tithe. Nor can the festival celebration be complete without a pilgrimage to the place where God chooses to have his name dwell. This designation appears 8 times here and is found in a variety of later texts ranging from the book of Kings to the book of Chronicles. Here we see what our God is telling us, and which Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us. You cannot have 2 temples. You will not have 2 Kohen Gadol. You will not have a multiple places, because when you start having that, then there will be a problem. Because one person will say, this is the way I want to worship. Another person will say, no, this is the way I want to worship. And that brings division. And then the evil, right? The disease, the virus of separation, of sin, of iniquity, of idol worshiping will creep in. And we can see that in the northern kingdom. When they decide to say, no, we want to have our own temple, we don't want our people to go down to the southern kingdom in Jerusalem to worship. And therefore, this idol worshiping creep in, and they begin to worship other gods that they do not know. And then we can see the result, the consequence of their actions. And the consequence was that they were erased completely out of the place. Now, it is only God, our King, who said, I'm going to bring them back again. That is going to gather all of us from all the places that he has scattered us to bring us back into the land that he has promised our forefathers, even to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, the society that Moshe is envisioning is a monolithic society. A one single society where we're going to have only one temple, where we're going to have our God is one, where we're going to have only one Kohen Gadol, and the society will be one. The priests of the temple, to be sure, are the seat of authority. The priests in the temple are the seat of authority. They give commands, and they run the day-to-day activities of the society. They are the guardians of the law and expert in it. If you have any problem, we go to them and they will interpret the law for us and what is expected of us what to do. But that is not the work of a prophet. A prophet is different. It is the prophet, however, who is independent of the temple. He is called by God to convey God's wishes to the people. For example, in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 18, a prophet is not like the priest in the temple. A prophet is independent of the temple. The prophet is called by God to deliver God's message to the people. If the priests in the temple are falling short, if the priests in the temple are falling short of the message, God will raise up a prophet and God will say, go warn them. Go tell them, this is what, and this is what, and this is what, and this is what I want them to do. And this is what, and this is what they are not doing. And this is the message I want you to tell the priest. If the priest is not doing what God has commanded him to do. So that is the job of the prophet. That is expressed in the key verse in the Parshas that we read, or that we read. After Adonai your God, you are to walk. Him you are to hold in awe. His commandments you are to keep. To his voice you are to hearken. Him you are to serve. To him you are to cling. To hold tight. Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 5. Fox translation compare this to the Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 18 to 19, which said, where is the king explicitly enjoined to write a copy of the Torah in order to learn each by day, every day, to learn the Torah. And he said that to fear Adonai your God. It is explicitly written down there that the king that you are to have, the king who's going to be a king over you, has to write a copy of the Torah in his chamber. And he has to read it every blessed day, to learn about it every day, so that he might be able to be a great king, a good king, a king that is worthy for everybody and to God. He said, to fear God, and to him you shall fear. In his new translation, Everett Fox replaces the literal translation fear with the phrase hold in awe. It is, of course, an acceptable interpretation, but does not convey the primary meaning of the term as it appears in numerous passages in the Torah. To fear God is more than to stand in awe of God. Yes, it's more than that. It is to experience the kind of dread Moshe Rabbeinu felt when he hid his face for the fear of looking at the Lord. Exodus chapter 3, verse 6. Or that Yaakov Avinu felt when he realized that he had slept in a place where God has appeared. So that is what we call the fear of God. That is Genesis chapter 28, verse 17. In both instances, what is represented is a fear of the awesomeness, of the awesome power of the Holy One, blessed be He, which, as Rudolf Otto pointed out a long time ago, both attract and overwhelm those who are confronted by it. So, when you fear God, you will see the awesome power of God. His power will overwhelm you, your soul, your spirit, and your body. That is what is called the fear of God. And yet, one can totally divorce the term from their primary meaning, as it appears from the comments of the ancient sages. Let all your undertaking be for the sake of heaven. That is what our sages said. Read a relatively new passage in a rabbinic text, that is in Derek Eres, Zuta 2 and 1. Love heaven and fear heaven. It is not enough to love God. One must also fear the punishment God has in store for those who disobey, as Rashi puts it. Still, as Rabbi Shimon ben Eliezer insists, he said, greater is one who does God's will from love than one who does God's will out of fear. So it is this kind of saying that both of our sages are telling us, that to fear God is to fear heaven. Love heaven and fear heaven, meaning to love God and to fear God. I'm not meaning this type of fear. No, that's not what I'm saying. The fear that I'm talking about is the fear of punishment, because the punishment of God will come upon those that refuse to obey the Torah. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu said, I present before you today life and death. Torah is all about life and death. That is it. It's balanced. You choose one. It is your choice. It is my choice. We have to choose one path. But he said, but I advise you as my children to choose life. He said, the choice is yours. The choice is mine. We have to choose where we stand. Where do you stand, my friend? Where do I stand? Where do we stand individually and collectively? Are we on the side of God? As I discussed with Amigo the other time, you cannot put your one leg here and the other leg here. It's not possible. It won't work. You have to be on one side. You have to take stand. Am I on the side of the Torah, or am I on the side of man? You decide. Or on the negative side. Are you on the positive side or the negative side? Are you on the side of the Torah of Moshe that God gave to Moshe from Mount Sinai? Or are you on the side of the Torah of a man? You decide. It is not. You don't come and say, oh, I didn't know. No. That's not what God is saying. God is telling you this morning, you have to take stand. Where do you stand? Where do I stand? Well, I know where I stand. I stand on the side of the Torah of Moshe that God has given him on Mount Sinai. What is the love of God? It is illustrated movingly in the word of the psalmist. He said, whom have I in heaven but you? And having you, I desire nothing else on earth. Though heart and body fail, yet God is the rock of my heart, my portion forever. The book of Psalm, chapter 73, verse 25 to 26. And again he said, my soul thirsts for you. My body yearns for you, as a parched and thirsty land that has no water. Psalm 63, verse 2. And he said again, my whole being cry out with joy to the living God. The book of Psalm, chapter 84, verse 2. These are clearly not conventional assertions. They are heartfelt statements reflecting deep emotion, describing the worshipper's longing for God, his or her sense of joy and feeling of serenity awakened by the divine presence. No wonder the psalmist can proclaim, I have set the Lord before me at all times. With him at my right hand, I cannot be shaken. The book of Psalm chapter 16 from verse 8 to 6. This is perhaps the best all-around statement of the meaning of spirituality in the Torah. That is what I'm trying to let us to understand, that we have to have a stand in what the Torah is telling us, that the fear of God, he said, is the beginning of wisdom. When we fear God with all our heart, our soul, and our being, what does it mean that we are fearing God? Meaning that we understand and we know that God is ever present before us in our daily activities. Not to say, okay, you know what? God is present on the Shabbat. God is present in the synagogue. I'm going to be holy. I'm going to do everything fine. And as soon as I put my leg, one of my foot outside, God is no longer there and God doesn't see me again. I can continue to do evil or bad. No. That is, the fear of God is for us to be able to put his Torah, to digest his Torah internally. Right? To listen and to do exactly what the Torah is saying. Not just only on Shabbat, but on every other day of the week. Knowing that, okay, God is with me. God is here. I cannot cheat. I cannot defraud. I cannot do something wrong because I know that God is seeing me. God is looking at me. God is all around me 24 hours. I have to do what is right and just. That is the fear of God. Interestingly, the American philosopher Satayana offer a secular definition of spirituality that is remnant of this verse. And I quote, he said, a man is spiritual when he lives in the presence of the ideal, and whether he eats or drink, does so for the sake of a true and ultimate good. I repeat again, Satayana, an American philosopher, give this interpretation of a spirituality, of a spiritual man. He said, and I quote, a man is spiritual when he lives in the presence of the ideal, and whether he eats or drink, does so for the sake of a true and the ultimate good. Not ultimate evil, but ultimate good. You can find that in the Reason in Religion, page 193. What is leading a spiritual life, if not eating and sleeping and performing all our working activities with a sense that we are doing so in the presence of God, just like the way I just explained, that all of our actions are guided by the desire to keep God in our lives. If this is so, spirituality does not differ from the effect to sanctify life. The most important thing is life sanctification, which, as Dr. Frankenstein said, pointed out a long time ago, is the defining characteristic of the Hebrew faith. What is the defining characteristic of the Hebrew faith? The defining characteristic of the Hebrew faith is life sanctification. To us, life is the most important. Life, you cannot just take life just like that. You can't just destroy life just like that. You can't just, waste life just like that. Life it has sanctity. We understand the sanctity of life, especially human life and all life. I mean, to believe in God is to believe that human life is worthwhile. That is not an accident. That the universe is shaped in such a way as to enable human beings to find meaning and fulfillment for their lives. That the resources for them to do so have been made available to all. This includes their freedom to make choices, to create relationship with others, and to fashion community of meaning. That is the meaning to believe in God. Understanding that human life worthwhile. To fear God is to recognize the danger that threatens those who turn their back on God in favor of lesser God. Those that turn their back on God for what? In favor of a lesser God. And what are these lesser gods? They are, for example, money, fame, pleasure, and power. There are people who want power. They want money, they want fame, they want pleasure, and these are the lesser gods. But remember, this cannot satisfy you, because there is an empty hole, there is an emptiness in your beings. Ultimately, this cannot satisfy, since they are offer only transcend purpose for living and keep us from enlisting in the service of God. Most of all this, money, fame, pleasure, and power, they distract your attention from enlisting yourself to the service of the true and the living God. Because of money, you become proud. Because of fame, you have ego. Because of power, you want to oppress other people. Those things hinder you from the true service of the living God, especially if you cannot control it. So, as I said, enlisting in the service of God, who can sustain in time of crisis as well as joy, and provide meaning to a life that transcends our limited time and space. To love God is to give ourselves to the creative power that keeps our world going, to recognize our own limits, and to live the kind of life that will justify our brief stay on earth and enable us to experience eternity in the ceaseless flow of time in the Garden of Eden. That is to love God. To love God is to give ourselves to the creative power of the Almighty that keeps our world moving, the power of creation. That is, to love God is to do exactly what our God has commanded us. They say a happy wife is a happy home. Understand? A happy wife is a happy home. If your wife is not happy, your home will never be happy. That is the fact. So what I'm saying here is, once we give ourselves to the creative force, to the creative energy, to the creative power that creates the multiverse, this is what we call the true love. Not half. You say, okay, my one leg is here and another leg is here. No. We have to take a stand. We have to, as the world is rolling to an end, and as what we can see, all the situation that is happening on our planet, the war, the climate change, and all the destruction of life and properties everywhere, all over the world, the volcanoes, all kinds of tribulation that is going on. God is giving us an understanding that man, see, understand, watch. Your action is bringing a destruction on the planet. This is your home. Why do you want to destroy it? Why do you want to consume it? Is it not foolishness, stupidity, that a man will live in a house and put fire in his own house? That is exactly what we are doing with the planet. And God is saying, see, look at, this is not happening 100 years ago. This doesn't happen 5,000 years ago. This doesn't happen 3,000 years ago. See what is happening. Regard, understand, watch, comprehend, look, understand what I'm telling you. That the Torah is true and the Torah is life. Torah is life to those that take hold of it. As Yeshua said, he cried out with a loud voice, "Come unto me, all you that is thirsty. Come, I will give you what? I'll give you the living water. Well, what is the living water that Yeshua was talking about? Is the Torah. Come, I will give you the living water that you will drink and never thirst again. What else do you want our God to do for us? What else? He has given us life. He has given us He has given us the Torah. What else again? Just it's free. It is not, you don't need money. Why do you pay? Why do you pay for things that does not make sense? The Torah asks, why do you want to waste your resources? The Torah is free. Come and drink, and you will have life eternal. The parasha opened with reference to blessing and curses, which I said is a consequence of your action. That God had said before us. And it closes with a reprise of the pilgrimage, festival, and the injunction that each individual is to appear before the Lord on the festival's time. This provides an opportunity for him and his family, which is for us to rejoice on the festival occasion together with the entire community. For us too, they remain a moving experience, since they reprise the great act of God for our forefathers, as well as God's bountiful gift for us today. They remind us of our responsibility to share our good fortune with others, not to hide them under your pocket and say it is only for me, but to share with every other member of the community. Because you understand that we are a social being. Human being is a social being. We interact with one another, and the greatest joy is for us to be able to share with one another what God has blessed us with. Each in keeping with the gift, with the gift we have received from God, thereby demonstrating that we seek to remain faithful members of the covenant community and the servants of God. It is noteworthy that the first three sentences in the parasha contain the word Anochi, and the last the phrase Adonai Elohecha. The opening word of the dialogue. Is that a chance occurrence, or have they been placed there to remind us that all that comes in heaven is designed to help us keep the divine presence forever before us? It's a question. Are they written accidentally, or is it just coincident, or is that the way God wanted, so that we might be remembered, or so that it might remind us that everything that we have is from heaven. Nothing that a man has that is not from heaven. Everything that a man owns is from heaven. It is not yours. It is loaned unto you. It is given unto you. But remember, a time will come when the Holy One, blessed be He, will require His energy back. So at that time, what are you going to say? At that time, are you going to be welcome in the Garden of Eden? Am I going to be welcome in the Garden of Eden? It's a choice. We have to decide, where do we stand? Choose a stand. Where do you stand, my friend? Where do I stand? Are we standing on the Torah, or are we going astray? As Moshe Rabbeinu said, all the idols, you shall destroy them, you shall eliminate them out of that place. But to your God, you shall not do so. You shall come at the pilgrimage to come to serve Him as one society, under one God, one temple, and one Kohen Gadol. Parasha Re. See. Are you seeing, or are you not? See. Shabbat Shalom.